Hello, everyone, and welcome to another creative writing workshop. My name is Laurel. I'm the director of Educators in VR, and I'm also the founder of the Creative Writing Workshop, and I'm so glad you're here. Today, we're going to be talking about part 2 on our Building Believable People. We're going to be talking about the world, our characters' world. And we're going to have so much fun with this. Oh, we're going to have so much fun. We meet every Tuesday right here in the amazing Engage XR. And we'd love to have you join us. All of our sessions are open and free to the public. You can come in 2D. You can come on mobile. You can come in on VR, whatever you want to do. It's pretty easy to do. You just have to register with Engage. It's free. Or you can get a paid account. It's up to you, whatever you want to do. And then you come in and join us. Our mission since 2018 is to create a supportive and creative educational environment for writers in virtual reality. We're not here to critique and edit work. We do have reading events and all kinds of other fun things, but our job is to help us learn about writing. How do we improve those creative writing skills? How do we really maximize our desire to tell our stories and share our stories? And that's what we're here for. All right. We are upcoming. We have several months worth of events we're going to get to, but I want to remind everyone in August, Educators in VR and this workshop tends to take a break. Now, last year, Tang Whistle did an amazing program that I want her to repeat called Odyssey in Ink. It's part of a book that she's writing on how do you get your work published and work with an independent publisher or any publisher with some really grassroots answers to questions that usually are not answered. And so I'm hoping she'll do this again. We shall see. In September, we're still debating if we're going to do VR NaNoWriMo, which is we're now calling VR Rimo, which is the National Novel Writing Month. We'll talk more about that later. That's usually in October every year. We'll see what happens. But in October, we do have our scary storytelling reading. It'll probably be in VR chat. Please start working on your stories now to scare us. Family-friendly stories. And in December, we have our holiday storytelling. So get ready. I tend to work on mine really early on because I need to edit and read them and practice and whatnot. So get ready for those events coming up. And if you have any other ideas or suggestions for writing events or things, just let me know. Let us know. You can join us on our Discord and just let us know. All right. Our monthly, this year, we're doing monthly workshop series. We had the writing path in February. We had a reading event, a break in March for spring break. And then April, we finished our world building for writers. And this month is characters in motion, building believable people. Next month is the plot lab. We're going to re-look at plot structures. We're going to look at how to really focus on the tension, stakes, and the structure of a good plot. Oh, that's going to be so much fun. Jay, you're going to love that. I know you are. Yeah, he's nodding. All right. And we've got all stuff. Yay, thank you. We have all kinds of things planned all year long. So, but this monthly series, the first one we did as our intro into building believable people, was really looking at what our characters look like in their environment. What do they look like? How do we describe how they move, how their emotional state is represented, all kinds of things. We had a lot of fun with that. Oh, I had a blast. I hope you did. Today, we're going to take this even further. We're going to take our characters and look at the world that they're in. Okay, and then we're going to do want versus obstacle, want versus need. Really fascinating next week. I cannot wait for that. And the fourth one, we're going to sum this all up and really take our characters and focus on the action and how they change and what are the words and the terms. How do we do that? How do we really show that our characters are moving through our story and taking action, and how do they change and evolve? So it's going to be really fascinating. I love this series. All right. So now we're going to enter the world of our characters in a way that's a little different than what we've been doing. I found in our session on world building for writers is this great chart. And we're focusing, the first one last month we looked at really the setting, the lore, the history of the world that are in the environment stuff that our characters in, our story takes place, and what are key conflicts and the stakes. But this month, we're really diving into our characters, the factions and their allies, and who's for them and against them, and really focusing on this middle part of choice points and consequences. That's going to be a key area for today. So let's rock. Last week, when we worked on how do we see our characters, we were moving from describing a person. Oh, they're 6 feet, blonde hair, blue eyes, green skin, whatever it is, to revealing a person in motion, showing us what this character looks like, and what do they look like within the world? What's that story? And we looked at using all kinds of sensory detail, observations, and this powerful understanding that it's the small choices they make that tells us about who they are, right? It's the little things. Any insights from last week? I'd love to hear them. Karis, you had too much fun with it. So you want to talk any lessons learned last week? Or can't remember last week? You have to press and hold.
Hello.
If you're on
Do I sound okay?
Yeah, you're fine.
I know I'm driving, so this is not safe, but I just wanted to say, like, all of the advice when I threaded it through kind of like what I'm working on right now, it really just it helped me so much. It just brought them to life. I felt like I could see them like for the first time. So thank you. It was really helpful.
Thank you. Oh, that's wonderful. I love it. How about the rest of you? Jay?
Yes. As a matter of fact, it does, like, the more I write, I am concentrating more on the lore and the backstories of my characters, but the more I write, the more evident it becomes, like, how how much clearer the actual present day story is, how much easier it is to write once I create all the surrounding backstories and the history of each character. What because I'm writing a sci-fi novel, as I've said, but yes, like revealing. Yeah, well, like taking a more kinesthetic approach is it's not only easier, but it's more fulfilling actually. It just stirs up more excitement over what direction you take each character. Is that relevant?
No, that's beautiful. And what's important in what you said is when you're talking about focusing on all the backstory and the script and everything, our characters and our stories are built in layers. And so focusing on our characters have a back history. They also have experiences in that history that make them make the decisions they make. And that's part of what we're going to talk about today. But they also, they behave the way they behave, and that's part of the story. They're responding to the environment around and the stimulus that's around them. But how do we paint that picture? And that involves researching your character, writing those backstories, really understanding. One of the things I was doing NaNoWriMo when I had years ago, and I was doing an amazing. I had this first week, I like knocked out over like 20,000 words. I was in heaven. The goal is 50,000. I could not stop. I was so excited. And then the next week, literally like on Monday, I was so jammed. I was so ready. I was so excited. And I sat there and looked at the computer and went, what the hell am I doing here? And I wrote, but I wrote slop. It was awful. And the next day I tried again and it was crap. And finally by Wednesday, I was in tears. And I was talking to my husband, who's smart. He's so smart. He knows me so well. And I was just literally in tears. And I said, I've lost track. I can't, I've got all of the creativity. The muse is dead. And he said, well, what do you know about your main character? So what do you mean? I know everything. I know everything about my character. And he said, so why does she have the job she has? um, uh, why does she choose to live where she lives? And I realized I didn't know. I thought I did. So I sat down the next morning and started churning it out. And the things that came to me out of nowhere, I was amazed, absolutely stunned. It's not a brag. That's what happens when you have to hit that wall, and then you have to give yourself permission to go through it. But it's like, I may never use what I wrote, but I now really know my character. And every time I attack my character again, I know her even better. So it's about layers. Good point. Excellent. I love it. So let's take this next. Oh, Karis, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that, the emphasis that you're putting on knowing your characters is so crucial, because so much of the story and so much of the reader's experience of enjoying your story is, how does your character react to things? Well, why does your character make the choices that they make? And the better that you know your character, the better prepared you are as you sit down to write out a scene and you have some idea of what happens in the scene. You come up with some new idea of something to introduce to the scene. The more you know your character, the more you know how that character is going to react, and the easier and more fluidly it is for you to write that scene.
Absolutely. I think I mentioned this before, many, many years ago, when I was at college and doing every odd and end job, that you can pick up. I was working at a local furniture store, store where it was family run, and the family had been doing this for over like 150 years or something. And he trained me. He said, now this couch right here, you need to know 90% of all the information that it is about this couch. You need to know about this. I'm like, okay, well, tell me. I'm ready. I'm a sponge. Tell me. He said, but when you talk to the customer, you only share 10% of that knowledge. But you have to know 90% of it. And that's the equation that we need our characters. So that's a perfect segue into today, where we're working on believable characters world and the impact that world has on them. And what it does is that you deepen a character when you put them in a social system that pushes against them, really pushes against them, because people become believable not just through personality, but through the rules that they live under. Okay, what does that mean? What does that mean? People become believable not just through personality, but through the rules that they live under.
You're giving them a format, a map through of the story.
Okay, it's part of the map. What else? Good. Jay?
Yes. Well, for one thing, you were. I remember one of my writing teachers telling me, you find out most who your characters are when they're pushed to their limits. When, like, how they deal when they, like, can't get their way, or when they come across an obstacle that looks like it's that they can't just casually overcome. Well, I mean, maybe that's just part of it, but it's
No, it's beautiful.
just okay, all right.
No, that's beautiful. That's exactly right. It's like, you pull a diamond out of the ground, it's going to look like garbage, and then until you hone it, then it starts to look like it. Karis?
Yeah, if you don't have conflict, you don't have a story. And so if you've got a character who's struggling against a constant environment that has something to push against, that may not be the main through line of your story, but it certainly adds to the dimensions to the character, as far as what their struggle is.
Absolutely.
I mean,
our characters don't float in a vacuum, right? They're not just, they belong to a family, and they have the roles that are assigned to them as a member of that family, right? And that, there's a lot of pressure that goes into being a part of a family, and there's conflict, and there's aggravation and irritation and compassion and love and jealousy, all those different things. So they're part of a family. They're part of an institution. They're part of a class structure, right? and there's expectations that go along with that. They are they're in a culture, they're in a community where there are rules and there are consequences. So it is our job as the writer is to paint that huge picture. And we need to set up an environment that helps us understand that. So let's push this forward because we've got some fun stuff to do. So characters are shaped by power, obligation, status, and taboo. Those are the core things, right? The who's in charge. They're tested by who's in charge, who's telling them what to do, and their own issues with power and control, the obligation they feel, the responsibility, obligation they feel, status and taboo, doing something they shouldn't, pushing against the norm. These pressures, like a diamond, change what they say. It changes the choices they make. It influences it and the risks that they take. Now we're going to continue on using the example of The Wizard of Oz and Project Hail Mary. Now, what do you know? What are the powers, obligations, status, taboo, pressures for Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz? Steph?
That she doesn't know what the rules actually are. So she has to follow what's, well, basically the yellow brick road.
Right. She's in a strange place and she's given orders. She's given orders by who? Who is giving her the orders?
Glinda.
Yeah, Glinda, the good witch, is giving her orders as a consequence of her killing the bad witch and then getting those shoes, and now she's on a mission to do what?
She wants to go home.
Right, and that process will take her to
The wizard.
Emerald City.
the wizard. Yeah, Emerald City and the wizard. Okay, so in order to do that, she knows that. What does she know about the wizard? What do we know about the wizard? What is it called?
The Wizard of Oz.
Now
Oz
there's
the
a
Great
there's a
and Powerful.
prefix to it. The great and
Okay.
powerful Oz. Yes. So right there, her life is being shaped by this mystical power of the great and powerful Oz. Okay, and she is heading out. Now there's also another conflict in this. She has the power, obligation, status, the taboo, all of the things that she knew, the rules that she knew from home, from Kansas. And now she's come into a new world with new rules. So we got all of that pressure going in and around her. So she's guided by that. Now in Project Hail Mary, Ryland Grace is shaped by the pressure of the mission and the authority that put him there, though it's a process for him to understand as he wakes up and doesn't know who he is at first. But there's a wonderful contract. Again, like Dorothy, he had a safe world back on Earth. He was a middle school teacher. Everything was safe. He backed away from a risky job, risky career as soon as he got any problems. And he wanted to just fade into obscurity. He even says there's two key lines in Project Hail Mary. One of them is that he doesn't have the brave gene. He says that I don't have the brave gene. And then does anybody know, Steph, do you know the quote about being an astronaut? Do you remember that?
I put the not an astronaut.
Yes. Yeah, he's really clear. I love that. I put the not an astronaut. He does not want to be out in space. He does not want to take chances. And what happens? He wakes up in the middle of space and he's forced to. So he's been push and shove, and his obligation is what? Steph?
He doesn't realize right off at what his obligation is. So
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
in the beginning, his obligation is to figure out what the heck he's doing there and why.
No, that's not an obligation. What's his obligation? His responsibility.
Well, once he figures what it is, the obligation is to save his whole entire civilization and his planet.
Yeah, save the planet. You can't have a bigger one than that. His obligation is save the planet. Yeah. And then go home is the dream. But he has to work with all these new rules, and he doesn't know the rules, and he's trying to figure them out, and it's really fascinating. So both of these, I love working with these two characters. They just serendipitously came to me. I just love it because they both left behind the familiar, the safe, and now they're walking this dangerous path that confronts every single one of their fears. So when Dorothy sings Somewhere Over the Rainbow, she is, she's defining what she wants out of life, and then boom, everything comes to ruin that. So they're both so similar. All right, we're going to go through this list really quickly because we're going to go through this individually. And Steph, you're echoing a little bit, just a reminder. So as we look at these pressures in the worlds that in your character, the character in your world, you need to identify what rule or rules, but usually keep it simple. What rule, taboo, or hierarchy affects the character's behavior? You need to show the social pressure through the action, the dialogue, and the body language. All right? Because we still have to paint the picture of our characters moving through this and feeling the pressure. We need to show that character navigating permissions, authority, and exclusion. And we need to use the rules of the world to create character conflict without a lot of heavy exposition. Okay, that's too many words, too many stories. Okay, so let's dig into this. The first technique is called name the rule, name the cost. Name the rule, name the cost. And what you do is you look at these, you fill in the blank. In this world, people must blank. If they don't, they risk blank. Okay. Now, in Wizard of Oz, what are some ways that question could be answered? In this world, people must
Avoid the witch.
If they don't, they risk.
The wrath of the witch.
Okay, that works. What's another way of answering this, Steph?
I'm still laughing over that one.
Mhm.
To find your destiny, as it were, whether that's to go home or to have a heart or a brain or courage.
If they don't, they risk.
Not having any of those things.
Okay,
Ever.
that's a part of it. Yep. What else?
They must obey the wizard.
Yes. In this world, they must obey the wizard. And if they don't, they risk.
Exclusion, or like they get kicked out of the Emerald City.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So the goal is I want to get home, but in this world, the rules are you have to obey. First of all, you have to obey Glinda the Good Witch because she said that's how you get there. In order to get to get home, you have to go visit the great and powerful Oz. And if you don't obey what Oz tells you to do, which is to bring the broomstick of the witch, then you risk never going home. Yeah. Karis?
Well, I think that it's important in Dorothy's case to point out that Dorothy also brings her own rule.
Yeah, she does.
Last week we pointed out that in the very first dialogue that she utters in the film, her amount of empathy and caring for others is evident, and that becomes this huge factor. You always see the Wizard of
Yep.
Oz when in any promotion of the Wizard of Oz movie, you see these 4 characters plus Toto the dog. It's not just Dorothy. It's always these 4 characters. Well, what brings these 4 characters together is Dorothy's empathy. Every time she encounters each one of them and sees that they have a need, her empathy answers, well, the wizard's supposed to do this thing for me. Maybe the wizard can do this thing for you. So come along. And then attached to that is now she's got this sense of obligation to care for these people who have joined her on this journey based on her advice that maybe the wizard can help.
Yes. And
So,
did
yeah,
you ever notice that those characters, what do all those characters represent?
all different aspects of a personality.
Yeah. Together.
Aren't they her
It's like
family?
together
it's
they're
like
a whole
family.
person.
It's like a family, but together they're a whole person.
But
So
like
remember,
at
this
the
was-
end, they're like her uncles, right?
Right. Well, they're her uncles and her neighbors and the worker on the farm. But they so they're about her, and they're the duplicate of her real world. She's manifested those in there, but all together they make a human being, and their evolution through the story is on separate plot lines, so to speak, are all wrapped together. Is that each of those characters becomes a whole person, so to speak, at the end of the story. The lion finds bravery and commits brave acts all the way along, but he realizes it, and the scarecrow gets a brain. So she is finding parts of herself in these other characters as she goes. So there's a whole lot of subtext to that. So that's a wonderful example. Okay, now Project Hail Mary. In this world, people must. Anyone know what the answer to that one? And then if they don't, they risk.
Find the answer to why their planet is ended. And if they don't, they risk extermination.
Okay, so they have to solve the puzzle of the astrophage. If they don't, they risk the end of the world. What else?
Well, the main character, he must find out where he is and where he's from, and if he doesn't, he can't go forward.
Right. And so, but that's a really good point, Ian. So the not going forward part is actually part of his amnesia and finding out who he is, and that he can't move forward till he knows enough about who he is, which is actually a driving force. So he has to know who he is before he can really solve the problem. So that's a great example. Karis, do you have something to add?
Well, yeah, not having seen the movie, I'm kind of limited in what I can offer here. But
It's
he
now
is in outer space.
It's now available on Amazon. Very expensive, but you can now get it on Amazon Prime. Okay, go ahead.
He is in outer space, and so all of those things that we thought about a couple of weeks ago when we were on the surface of the moon, as far as life support and staying alive, all of those factors are part of the background. I imagine a part of the background of the story is that he does have these fundamental technologies that he has to use in order to stay alive.
Yeah. Here's something that if you haven't seen the movie, that is actually part of the really powerful answer to these two questions. It's very clear in the world that he is in, people must risk their lives to save the planet. He has zero interest in risking his life. Now, if the problem is not solved, the planet will die and people will starve and whatnot because the sun is being eaten, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So but these people have the bravery gene, and he says he doesn't. And so and that's part of the conflict. In his world, there are brave people that are going to give up their life by going out to space, solving the question of what's happening. If they don't, it's the end of the world. He's not one of them. So we have exclusion because he's not the positive part of that question. He's living in a world where that's the expectation. And he's surrounded by people that are giving their lives up in order. Hi, Cherie, and welcome back.
Hi.
Hi. And so we're working on believable characters. Working on believable people in our stories, and we're talking about the world our characters in and the impact of that world on our characters. So in Project Hail Mary, we have an example of exclusion because Grace thinks he's not someone who's going to save the world. And yeah, the planet's going to die, but he'll help, but he's not going to risk his life. So that's part of that answer. Now let's move on to the next technique. Same character, different rank. Your character is going to meet people along their journey who are at different hierarchy than them. And they're going to behave differently depending upon who's in power and the needs and how they have to deal with these. And we do this all the time, right? We talk in different ways to people who are different from us or a different hierarchy from us. And so we speak differently when we talk to someone with more power or less power. And when we talk to a peer, we have a different way of talking, right? And then there's variations on the theme. When you know your character really well, then you can adjust their behavior on how they will respond to someone who is on a different hierarchy, different status level. So in The Wizard of Oz, how does Dorothy respond to the hierarchy around her, the status around her?
Well,
Well, she's told
first character,
Ian, go ahead. Ian?
the first character we come in contact with is the witch.
Mm-hmm. Glinda? Yeah, so how does she talk to Glinda?
Well,
How's she behave?
she doesn't know she did anything wrong.
No, that's the point. When Glinda shows up and Dorothy meets her, Glinda comes in on a bubble. She's in this beautiful gown and crown. And what does Dorothy do? Anybody remember? She bows, she curtsies because she doesn't know anything else. She recognizes immediately that this is someone with power that she doesn't have. So she curtsies. And it's very cute. So she behaves differently to Glinda. Then when she meets the first victim on her journey, who is
Scarecrow, of course.
Scarecrow. And how does she behave towards the Scarecrow?
Well, she's amazed that the Scarecrow can talk and move. And other than that, she does act like he's an equal.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you remember how she behaves when she meets the Tin Man?
I think she's concerned.
Yeah,
and angry. Yeah, she's concerned, angry, and she's protective. But it is closer to an equal. Yeah, so each of these. Now, when they go to meet the Oz, when all the characters go and they walk down that long hallway and they meet Oz, how do they behave?
Timorously.
Scared.
Yeah, absolutely terrified. They don't want to be there. It's great. I am the great and powerful Oz. I'm out of here. So all those are great examples. And same thing when she sees the witch in the crystal ball, she is terrified. And so be aware that your character is going to respond differently. There's so many beautiful ways in Project Hail Mary where of Grace responding to in different ways. And one of my absolute favorite is when he's woken up and he's getting his space legs and whatnot, and he ends up in the flight deck and he sits down on the chair, and the ship's computer immediately says, "Pilot recognized." He's going, no, not pilot, no, I'm not, and immediately denies that authority, even though the computer recognizes there's a butt in the chair, therefore it must be the pilot. And he's going, no, not the pilot. And so you have, even though Grace is alone, shall we say, in the spaceship becomes anthropomorphizes into Mary, and the robot that's in it also is another character, and eventually we have Rocky joins the character list. But those interactions are peer and subservient, and all he thinks the computer is the boss and dictating to his life. The robot, he doesn't want to cooperate with the robot at all. And right in the very beginning, when he's waking up and he's spitting up water and trying to make his mouth move again, and I love the robot is saying, what is cognitive tests, what is 2 + 2, and he goes and go, incorrect answer, and immediately it's like a subservient kind of role. So even in that, with as few characters as there is hierarchy. There are different ways to communicate and talk and relate to these different characters. Okay, now oh gosh, we're running out of time, darn it. All right, forbidden, we have 2 more techniques. The forbidden action prompt. This one is ask yourself, pick a taboo, pick a something to create tension because the character wants to do something and may not be allowed to, and then ask yourself, why is it forbidden? And what would it cost to break it? So Dorothy repeatedly crosses boundaries in a world that's filled with warnings and threats and protected spaces and don't go there, got to go there, go to places you don't want to go, all those different ways. And she continues to push through these things. In Project Hail Mary, everything that Grace and Rocky does is a risky experiment, and it's life or death technical decisions that happen in the process. So you want to really look at what those how they cross those thresholds and understand why is it forbidden and what would it cost to break it. And part of in Wizard of Oz, those red ruby slippers, she's told not to take them off. Really, that's difficult to take a shower and sleep in the shoes. But anyway, that's never covered in the story. But it's those shoes have power, and she's told that, and she obeys it and trusts that they do. And then there's consequence if she takes them off, again, breaks that rule. Okay, this one is actually kind of hard for people to get. It's called, it's about belonging and exclusion. Is your character on the inside? Is your character on the outside? Or are they on the edge? And how is that reflected in their body language and their speech and their access within the world? In Oz, there's no doubt Dorothy's an outsider. She doesn't understand the rules. She's going forward, but she's an outsider all the way through. And in the end, we learn that the great and powerful Oz is also an outsider, but he changed that world to meet his needs and demands, but is still an outsider. He's still not part of the community, even though he manipulated that. So where every character in your story has a position that they hold, where are they? Are they included, excluded? When Grace meets Rocky, so leading up all the time, for those of you, I'm not giving, actually what I'm doing is I'm not giving away anything about the story of Project Hail Mary, because when and if you do watch it, which I hope you do, you will discover these things and see them in a better light. They'll jump out at you all the way through, even up to the time when it takes a while after Grace has met Rocky. He's excluded from everything. He puts himself outside of everything. Every single scene, he's an outsider looking in. And there's a beautiful little tiny moment in the story where he comes out to meet Rocky in this tunnel that's created, and he stands there and taps on the transparent rock that's between them and says, yep, always a wall in my relationship. See, once again, I'm facing another relationship wall. There's a wall in my relationship. And it's beautiful because that is how he is up until midway through his relationship with Rocky, when he truly connects and understands what it is to be a friend and to connect with someone. So we need to know where they are and we need to have that clear in how they move through the story. All right, really quickly, some common pitfalls. When you have systems that are way too abstract and hard to focus on, the Foundation by Asimov is such an amazing series of books, but its backstory is overwhelming, and many people can't get through it. It's hard to focus and understand until you deep dive, and then it makes sense. You get it. Good guys, bad guys, you understand the layers to it and things like that. But watch out for making your system just too complex and too abstract. Make sure that you have a very specific rule that has a very clear consequence, and we understand those things. This one is, I find this in a lot of beginner writers, they over-explain and over-justify everything. It's like, oh, well, it's the sign. You have to obey the sign that says walk and don't walk, and then they over-explain why it's green and why it's red. Say, yeah, don't need to know that. We don't need a whole history lesson in why it's green and why it's red. We get it. So watch out. This happens in the early phases when you're doing your draft. Over explain and justify everything, but as you go through and edit, you're gonna lose 90% of that. So just watch that. Be aware of it. Okay, it's necessary in development. It's not when you get closer to publishing and sharing. And be careful of creating content that makes the reader reliant on knowing too much backstory, because in today's reading world, they won't read it. They see a dense paragraph, skim right through it, and they're going to miss something that's really might be essential because they're skimming through big blocks of content. Sad, but just be aware of these. Okay, now what we're going to do, we may run over a little bit. I'm sorry, we started a little bit late, but I want to, here's the things to think about as we're going to, Lance is about to take us to our first world. I want you to really think about, identify at least one rule or expectation. Think about what would be the status levels and the differences in the status, and then identify discomfort, exclusion, permissions, signs and signals that be in the world, and whether or not your character would choose to comply or not. And then, this is a lot to throw at you, but we're going to talk it all through. I want you to think that your main character in the worlds that we're going to go to, hopefully to 2 worlds, that your character's an outsider. They're on the outside looking in at this system that's there. They need to ask permission for something that they think must be theirs. Put that in your head and see if you do. And follow a rule that conflicts with their goal, and realizes that the good option has a cost. All right. I know it's a lot of information, but these are really important, because when you you think about these things, and I'll get these up on our site. I'll pull this all together and put it up on our Discord. But these things really produce attention and tension and the movement without requiring a lot of complex plotting in your story. And it's really important to make sure that the power and the control issues, the system, is visible and obvious to your characters. And then you can, you edit away from it. All right, are we ready? Lance, wave your magic virtual wand, please, and take us away. Aha! We are back here. Okay. So for those of you seeing this for the first time, you're welcome to wander around. It's a small space. Don't get too lost. But let's move in here. And I want you to consider your character. So I'm going to be quiet. So don't get too lost. Just wander around. I'm going to stay here in the middle. I want you to wander around and think about the fact that your character's an outsider. I want you to identify some of the rules and expectations that might be here, where there might be status differences, identify discomfort, exclusion, permission, signs and signals that your character is going to have, and whether or not they choose to comply. So everyone just keep quiet. I'm going to mute myself. and I want you to just think about your character in this Asian market. Okay? I'm not going to answer any questions. I just want everybody to stay quiet for a moment and just wander and look and think. Okay, everybody had long enough to think? Okay, Jay, go for it.
Okay, what came to mind for me first of all is like a spy thriller where the guy is sent to Japan. He can't actually ask for help, otherwise he's going to reveal unintentionally that he's not familiar with the environment. Is that kind of what you're looking for?
That's well, it's what you want to do. So this is not his normal space. He feels excluded naturally because he's not native. And does that also affect his status? The hierarchy?
Possibly as yeah, as an outsider, like it would. Like I don't know a lot about Japanese culture specifically enough to say this for sure, but it would probably have uh get people knowing, oh, this is not somebody who really belongs here. That direct advice. So does that make sense? Is that kind of what?
Okay, so he's an outsider. How would he behave?
Well, in a spy thriller, he would definitely have to be extremely observant and enough to. Well, you probably would have to, come in with an understandable foreknowledge. I mean, I don't know much about real life spies, but yes, he would probably spend a lot of time mimicking the behavior of the occupants, to keep himself from sticking out later. That is the that is. I'm just kind of thinking out loud, to be honest. But that's what.
When in it has the word rent in it, which went on my mind with Brendan Fraser. He's in Japan, and he's like 6'4" or whatever he is, and he's around a whole bunch of people that are around 5 feet, and so he can't go anywhere without towering over everyone, and so he has the societal pressure to behave in a certain way, but also he just cannot fit in physically. He may know the language or not, but he just physically, he just looks like an outsider. And that's one way of portraying a character. And that's a blatant way. Here he is, the tallest thing, biggest thing in the room, compared to all these little tiny people. So that's a physicality that can be used. All right. But as a spy, the person wants to fit in. But again, there's a physicality. How do they fit in? And then how do they get what they want? And mimicry and emulating their behavior could be one of the ways they overcome that. Okay, good example. All right, who else? Who wants to go next? Have we lost Karis and Steph? Disappeared? All right, Karis, you got a
Down
character?
that way.
Um, I, I struggle with this because this would be something that you as the writer would construct as a set piece to
Mhm.
to show off your character doing something. So you wouldn't really be starting with a location. You'd be starting with your character and then be building set pieces for your character to interact with.
Maybe. You
So
can. There's no right or wrong way. We just remember that you can start with a place and then put a character in it. It's up to you.
well, yeah. Um, I mean, I don't know. I guess a couple of things. How's your character going to act in it? Well, it depends
Mhm.
on who the character is. If the character's, trying to kind of lay low and not necessarily be noticed and not rock the boat, then yeah, he's going to try to be respectful and try to go along and not draw a lot of attention to himself. Your character could be the ugly American.
Okay.
Your character could be the ugly American who doesn't show respect, and of course there could be consequences for being that character.
Mhm.
So I mean the location itself doesn't automatically dictate how your character is going to respond. Your character is going to dictate how he's going to respond. Um, that said, I'm losing the word right now, but there's lots of opportunities here for that physical style of how people jump from wall to wall and scale. What's that called?
Ninja.
Parkour?
Yeah, parkour. There's lots of, if your character is a
Mhm.
parkour, this would be a great set piece to do lots of that kind of stuff.
Okay. All right.
Assuming that that's in your character's skill set.
Okay, but what we wanted you to do is to come up with a character to identify a rule or expectation they have, their status differences, and how would they behave with with the social system in mind. Do you have a character in your head?
Well,
Was it angry American? Oh, did we lose Karis? Nope, there. Okay.
If your character is gonna be the ugly American, there's lots of ways that he could be insulting and demeaning and disrespectful to a lot of stuff here,
Okay.
and draw those consequences upon himself.
All right.
All right.
Okay. Okay, Steph.
Well, I just noticed that you can see in the distance behind me here an office building, well lit, very high, tall skyscraper type of affair. And I can just imagine a tourist that just went a little too far and got in these alleyways, sees where they want to go over the rooftops, but cannot figure out how to get out of this maze to get to it. I had somewhat of a similar experience this afternoon.
Okay.
While we were trying out a maze in Engage. So that what you're trying to figure out then is you don't speak the language, you don't know the customs, you can't read the signs, and all the doors are shut, and it's obviously after business hours. So what do you do? And that's the goal, as well as if you don't know the lay of the land, how do you go about, or do you just keep wandering, hoping that you'll just accidentally figure out how to get out of here?
Okay. Good. Those are good. Keck two.
Okay, I think I'm ready. Okay, walking around, I thought of a character that's a cat that has lived on this block her entire life. Maybe her owner family runs a restaurant on this shop. Maybe they've done it for generations, but now in the distance, they can kind of see encroaching development from tourism. It's taken over the block. It's causing rent to be raised. The owner family has been pushed out of their home and they left the cat behind. And now the cat has to see the environment in like a whole new way. They have to become an alley cat and there's people now in what was their home that they don't recognize anymore, like tourists are everywhere, who typically don't care for the alley cats like maybe culturally they would if they're not tourists. And so she's also never had to interact with the other alley cats. She comes
So the
from
rules
like
have
this life of
changed.
luxury. Yes, so
Mhm.
she's excluded, but in her own home in a way that also signals her privilege and like where she comes from. So I love like that uncomfortable feeling where like
Perfect.
you should be comfortable, you should be coming from this place.
That's wonderful. Great job. You all are really good. Wonderful. I was thinking
It's always easy to write about cats.
Yes,
Like-
yeah, I'm a fan of cat studies. No, that's beautiful. I love that. The and doing using an animal or as a narrator too is a wonderful way to tell a story. If you haven't seen Bright, Beautiful Characters, I think it is, with Sally Fields, the narrator of the story is the octopus, and it's really fascinating storytelling technique and really fascinating layered characters. So I highly recommend it. And that's what you made that your story about the cat reminded me of that. It's just really beautiful. I love that. I was thinking of someone who grew up here until she was probably, 6, 7, 4, 4, 5, 6, and then her family left and moved to Texas. And now she's back to visit her birthplace with a Southern Texas accent. Even though she looks just like everyone else here, she brings something different and how they would judge her. Yeah, Steph?
No, I'm just going,
Yeah, so cool.
That's like
all right, good
literally
job.
my life. So that's kind
Yeah?
of
Is it?
I'm a
How is-
Japanese American in Oklahoma.
oh,
So that's hilarious.
I love it. Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. All right. I want to go to one more place, and you've been there before, so most of you, and I want to look at I want you to think about a character that would be completely out of place in this environment. All right. So, Lance, wand waving, commencing. Oh, I love this place. I love this place. All right. Kakadu, have you been here before?
No.
Okay. Well, you can wander around. Most of us have been in here before. This is one of our educators in VR medieval village. Beware that you can get lost really easily. So Lance will help you let us know if you get lost. So Lance will come rescue you. All right. What would be
Can
a
you
character?
come in this world whenever you want to?
No, I wish you could. Nope. So Steph's already gone off to explore too. What would be a character in here that would be against society, be the opposite of what you would expect a character to be here? Karis?
A Connecticut Yankee.
Excellent. That's brilliant. Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court. Beautiful. All right. So fish out of water. What else? What would be another character that would, that would defy our expectations being here? On this medieval village sitting on a rock in the middle of the ocean. Or a sea
How
or
about a
someplace.
rich businessman?
A rich businessman? Well, do you think
Yeah.
that there'd be rich business people here?
No, you were talking about people out of place. Well, a businessman would be out of place in this setting.
Okay, so the suggestion is that there's no one here that is in business and rich. So there's a richer businessman that came in here, and he's looking around doing what? What is he? So Ian, what is he seeing? How is he responding to this environment? Your rich businessman. It's a great idea. How would he respond?
Well, he's looking at all the people in the old clothes and he's saying, what am I doing right here? I'm really rich and really polished, and here these people are really old. They've got tattered
Okay.
clothes.
Okay. So the assumption is there's a bunch of old people living here. Okay. Um, all right, and so he probably has, by coming here, he has a goal, and he's dismissive of everyone because they don't look like him. Okay, nice. That's interesting. And then, and so he becomes the protagonist rather than, the antagonist rather than the protagonist, because somebody's going to have to stand up to him, right, to protect the way of life, to protect the history and the culture of this place. Okay, nice. Nicely done. All right, who's next? And where are you, Steph?
I think I'm in a lily pond with a heron.
Okay, Lance, you might want to find her and bring her back. See? All right. What else? What else would be a character here that'd be...
Actually, it's a big puddle. Never mind.
Okay. All right. Well, Steph, what's the character in your head?
The character in my head is someone who's walking around this deserted island, wondering where everybody went.
Okay, so you're being literal. Okay.
And the goal is to survive long enough to maybe get off the island and get home, or at least find out where everybody else went.
Okay. All right. And what would be the social system that they're pushing against?
Well, in this case, especially if one's alone, the social system is what was left behind, that possibly to eat or to clothe, or you would discover your society in absentia.
Okay, no, that's fascinating. Okay, that could be a really fun story. Yeah, you're discovering the history and the culture that's here. Yeah, Karis?
You know who this environment is a real nightmare for?
Yeah.
And this doesn't have to be someone from a far off land or a different time period. Someone who is born and bred right here in this city but is disabled. This is a nightmare.
Oh,
absolutely. No, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And so I'm going to follow through on that one because that is really smart. That means that they are dependent upon society to navigate this place. And there would be expectations and assumptions and schedules, that at 9:15 every morning, your character would be at the bottom of the stairs, and there would be, Olaf's ready to cart him up the stairs and to go on to the next level and whatnot. So there would be dependence upon those things. And that's part of a social system expectation. And then the challenge would be what happens when that breaks down. Yeah, brilliant. That's a brilliant idea. Okay, y'all have been amazing at this. So again, the goal of this was to really look at how our characters are shaped by the power, the obligation, the status, and the taboo. And when these pressures are applied to our character, how does it change them? But not just the transformative. How does it change what they say, what they choose, and how they risk, what risk they take? And how do they respond? That's what paints the picture of our characters and makes them believable. In The Wizard of Oz, we're Dorothy. We are on this journey with Dorothy. Dorothy is us, and we're seeing this world through her eyes, but they're also our eyes. And we see all the characters she meets. We see the experiences. We feel what she feels, and so she's us in this. She's our navigator through this weird dreamscape that she's landed in. In Project Hail Mary, well, I think that there's courage and bravery in every single one of us. I think it is also possible that every single one of us would go, yeah, no, I'm not going in outer space. You can't make me go in outer space. I don't care how good I am or how this. That's someone else's job. I'm not going to walk into a building that's on fire. I'm not going to walk into a spaceship that's going somewhere where I can't control what's going on. I am not going to go into that cave. We all have that in us. And then somehow when we need to, we find that bravery gene that suddenly pops up, So we all have those, those pressures make us change our mind. They make us behave differently. And that is what helps paint our character. Karis?
I was just going to say, when you got a character saying, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do this, you just anticipate that Gilligan's Island hard cut to them doing it.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And that's what we love about our, we can go through and talk about every movie, every book, every story, and everything that we have ever, experienced, and things even in our lives where we're like, I can tell you that for the first few years of my life, while my husband's quite adventurous, going to see a movie, going to see a play or a theater or something like that wasn't something that he really wanted to do, there would be heel marks and claw marks at the door as I shoved him through the threshold to go, you're going anyway. We're going to the art gallery. And then he loved it afterwards, but the going was always hard. Now he goes all the time. He goes without me. But, we're always being pushed into doing things that we don't want to do, or we choose to do things that we don't want to do. Lance is getting ready to go. And Lance, thank you again for all the great work in choosing the worlds and helping us put this all together. He's getting ready to take a second ever plane trip. And a trip away from most things that he is secure. And I said, how can we make this easy for you? And he wanted to go to the airport so that he could just be at the airport and feel what that is and learn where all the places he had to be is. He chose to put himself under pressure in order to improve himself and to work through his anxieties. I'm so proud of him, and he did. So often our characters will choose to do these things, but they're going to go fighting every step of the way, but they made a choice. But most of the time, in most stories, they're forced into it. They're pushed into it. They don't consciously choose. They go kicking and screaming. And that's why we love our characters. That's what makes them believable, because we go, that's me. I'd be kicking and screaming. I wouldn't be going there. Not me. So think about those things. And again, I will get the tips and things that are out there that I gave you, those little prompts to think about, just to review. Name the rule, name the cost, same character, different rank, forbidden action, and then the inside, outside, and on the edge. Where are they in the position of the world? So thank you, everyone. Next week, we are going to be doing want versus obstacle with our characters. So we're going to be looking at the difference between a want and a need for our characters, and then how does that impact, with everything else we've talked about, them overcoming the obstacles that come their way. We'll be visiting Dorothy and in Wizard of Oz and Grace and in Project Hail Mary, and how do they overcome their obstacles that are thrown their way? Because I think it's a great analogy. At least one of the two y'all have probably seen at least once or read the books and things, so you're familiar with them. But so I hope you're having fun with this. Any last questions or comments or insights, lessons learned? Okay, I want to thank you all, and I will see you all next week. Keep writing. Keep writing.